Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Thursday night, and that means it is time for In Case You Missed It, where we talk about what has happened this week since we were last on Tuesday night. And fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, there's been a lot that's happened. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. So I'm glad that you're here. First of all, let's say hi to a few people. Also, before we go, you guys can see by my background, I'm not using a virtual background tonight. I'm actually in a hotel. I'm not in a truck. And so that's going to give way for a lot of things we can talk about as well. My good friend Tim Back is here. Also, Trucking with Fly Rabbit is here. This Trucking Life is here. Little Jimmy, Gary Cook, and The Right Way to Truck is here. Glad you could all join us. Let's talk about what happened. When I left you guys, oh, wait, we got to say hi to one more. Uh, Joe Wentz, Project TV, is in the house. Really good friend of the show and personal friend. Glad he's here. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. So on Tuesday, you might remember right before I went on the air, I had got my insurance check and I was trying to find a place to cash it. And so the bank that I bank at, Chase, wanted to hold the check for 7 days, and I needed the money quickly because I had had a truck picked out, and I didn't want to lose that truck. And so we contacted, and I knew this was a terrible idea, but I was just curious. We contacted some of the check cashing places in the greater Lubbock area, and you're not going to believe this, but one of the places wanted almost $1,300 to cash the check. Most places was between 3 and 6% to cash the check. I felt that was enormous and I was unreasonable, and I wasn't willing to do that. So I noticed that the check was from USA Bank, or I'm sorry, US Bank, and US Bank no longer has any locations in Texas. So the nearest location was about an hour and a half or so away from my house, a little over 100 miles in Clovis, New Mexico. So drove over there, cashed the check for a whopping $7 check cashing fee, which I still thought was ridiculous because it's a check drawn on their bank. There's no risk. They can look in there and see how much money's in the account. But to get it for convenience reasons, I gladly paid the $7. And then from there, and this was on Wednesday, we it ended up being late in the day by the time we got everything done. My wife and I loaded her car. We tried to get a rental car, and there's another great story. Um, Rental cars, they claim they didn't have any for one way in Lubbock. Enterprise and Avis are the two car companies in Lubbock that do have one way car rentals. And they both said they didn't have any right now. Actually, that's not true. Enterprise said they didn't have any. Avis said they had one, but they didn't want to rent it. And so we ended up loading our luggage in my wife's car, and we drove almost 1,100 miles to where we're at now. I'm not going to say my location tonight, but I can tell you that I'll probably have a Monday video coming out, a recorded one. And at that time, I'll tell you where I'm at and the truck I've selected if we end up going that route. Now, we did do a drive-by on it today and looked at it, and I think I'm going to be happy with it. The salesperson, the reason we couldn't do everything today was having a root canal, but he's a trooper. He's going to be up there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to be meeting with him. And directly following this show, I'll be going to bed so that I can get up early and go to that because I'm exhausted. I've been awake for a very long time. Basically 1,500 miles since yesterday. And I know what you're saying, especially some of you old timers. Oh, I've done that in a truck. Yeah, I have too. But it's a lot different in a personal vehicle in a car than what it is in a truck. We've got a lot more stuff to talk about too, but let me say hi to a few more people. My good friend Daryl is here. Uh, Tim, Big Papa Joe Wentz is here. So you're saying hang up your keys and start a check cashing business. Man, it's tempting. I got to tell you because, you know, I wasn't familiar with that business like it used to be. In the old days, like when I worked in the grocery stores and high schools and stuff, we cashed checks all the time for especially people we knew. And sometimes there was a fee, sometimes there wasn't. But nowadays, as electronic as everything is, they can check and see if a check's good before they accept it. And I just don't see, I can't think of any check that's worth a 6% fee. If you write them a personal check, if I write you a personal check and you take it in there and cash it, they call the bank and ask them, hey, does Trucker Todd have, you know, enough money to cover this $150 check or whatever? So, it just seems crazy. You know, they're paying some guy that's in a shack and they literally operate out of shacks with a safe in there. They're paying them, you know, probably $8, $10 an hour to sit there and cash checks. And a lot of times they don't even give you cash back. They load it on a prepaid card. And I didn't know all of this. And then they do other stuff. They take payments and sell money orders and stuff like that. But that seems to be a gold mine. And Walmart also cashes checks, but this check was too big for Walmart standards, and so yeah, it was a crazy ordeal to say the least. And my bank, I couldn't believe, you know, it's a large insurance company. They could have made one phone call and found out if that check was good or not. And to hold it 7 days, I thought was crazy, but we did get it handled. Love to hear your opinion on CRST lease purchase. Seems like the best deal out there as far as lease purchase goes, and they have a load board. I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked at it. Back my recollections of CRST was they used to want teams, and they used to do well. I think they still do mostly flatbed, and it's just teams and flatbed are two things, especially at my age, that I'm not interested in doing. But I might take a look at them and do a video for you guys and talk about them and kind of give you my thoughts. The problem is, I went through a spurt, you know, a couple of years ago where I did that. I did some videos on Snyder. I did some videos on Risinger. I did some videos on, you know, several companies, and everybody thought I had worked there. And so they go, oh, you're a job hopper. And I never worked for any of those companies. I said it in the first 20 seconds of the video. I said, hey, I'm just doing a review for guys that have been asking about them. I've never worked for this company. And so all it does is stir the pot and get a lot of people mad at me. But if you're curious about CRST, I'll consider doing a video about them. If you uh, if I don't do a video, you can email me at todd@truckertodd.net. And again, that's in the ticker below this at the bottom of this video. You can email me, ask me about them, and I'll look into them. I'll pull their safer score, and I'll give you my honest opinion um, about if they're good or not. Also, when you do that, though, tell me where you live, because there's not a one size fits all for everybody. You know, for 50% of the country, that might be a terrible place to work. And for the other 50% of the country, that might be a great place to work. So just send me as much information as you can about yourself and what you're looking to do there and things like that, and I'll sure look into it for you. Like I said, I may do a video about it when I get some time. Here lately, like I said, I hadn't had any sleep in a while. You can probably see the bags under my eyes. I fell asleep for about 10 minutes right before the show came on because I'm just exhausted. but I'll sure try to get that done for you. And like I said, I hope you guys will stick with me a minute. I want to say hi to a few more people, and then I want to talk to you about Trucker CFO, um, and some things coming up there, some appearances I'll be making in the future, and things like that. If you guys want to meet me, and some videos that are coming up and things like that. Hey, Skyline, I'm glad you could make it. Hey, Jorge, I'm glad you're here, man. Thanks for joining us. Um, it's always nice to have new faces in here. If you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them or email me at todd@truckertodd.net. From time to time on here, we'll disagree about stuff, but we try to keep it respectful if we can. And so hopefully you'll be able to do that. If you've got any questions, throw them out there. Sometimes guys will answer it in the comments before I can even get to it, and that's always great. We've got a ton of really smart, knowledgeable people in the comments, and they give a lot of great advice. So also join in if somebody asks a question in the comments and you've got some advice or some knowledge about maybe a company they're asking about or something like that. Please feel free to share that. And I'm really excited. Another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is, I kind of became known on YouTube as the lease purchase guy. And a lot of people came to me with lease purchase questions, and that's great. I'm still going to keep doing that. But lease purchase has changed the last couple of years. And now, in the old days when lease purchase first came out, the big draw was, hey, you might make a little more money and you're going to drive a nicer truck. Now, lease purchase, the draw is we're not going to treat you like a company driver, but you're probably going to drive the same trucks that company drivers do. And so now the thing to do is to buy your own truck. It gives you freedom. You can buy what you want. The problem is when you are a first time truck buyer, and even though I've been doing lease purchases since 2001, when you are go to get your first truck financed, and I paid cash for a truck too, they treat you like you're a brand new first time buyer, and interest rates are ridiculous. I mean ridiculous. Credit card rates, 25, 30% interest rates, down payments, 40, 50% sometimes. And so that phases a lot of people out. Also, you would think you're buying a house. They want golden credit and all that. Well, the market has taken care of this. Now there's other options, and that's what I've been working on. Not just how can I, pad Trucker Todd's pocket, but how can I help you guys too? And I think very, very soon, possibly early part of next week, I'm going to be able to show you guys how you can get your own truck for, you know, 2 to 5 thousand down, let's say. And you guys, I'm not going to mislead you. There's other expenses there. You got to get insurance or go to work for a company that'll provide it or sell it to you. Got to get a 2290. You got to pay sales tax. You got to decide if you want to get your own plates or not. And I'm going to talk about that and give you real solutions in the coming days. Now we're down to days, within a week, so that you guys can start being out from under the thumb of these companies that I feel like that are taking advantage of a lot of drivers in a lot of cases. And so we're going to talk about that too. But let me get back into these hellos, and then we'll we'll go on to some other things I want to talk about. Really want to talk about Trucker CFO and another YouTube channel. Let's see what else we got here. Skyline says, hit the thumbs up, fellows. Yeah, I would really appreciate that. My good friend John Toohey is here. I believe he's baling hay right now. If he's not, he's about to very soon. Stay away from CRST. I've heard bad things on CRST, don't know personally, but I have not had a positive review with those I've spoken to with several drivers. Yeah, I had a guy that sent me or a gal, I don't remember, sent me a lease this week that was $1.05 a mile plus fuel surcharge, and they thought it was a great deal. And once I started going through the numbers, of course, they had never done a lease purchase before. And once we went through the numbers, we figured they'd make about 35 or 40 cents a mile after all is said and done. And then they're like, "Oh, that's terrible. Maybe I shouldn't go there." And that's where some of these companies have thrived, is that they've offered these programs that was great for the company, but terrible for drivers. And drivers didn't realize it was terrible because they didn't have the experience, they didn't know who to ask, things like that. John says tomorrow he'll be baling the hay. He's still not home yet. I'm doing good, Mark, my friend. How are you? All right, so now let's get into some more stuff. So, Trucker CFO, let's go to what hopefully everybody here knows. Next Tuesday, or this coming Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Time, he's scheduled to be on my show. We're going to do our normal last Tuesday of the month interview where we ask him all kinds of tax and financial questions. He's even answered a few questions about credit, business credit, things like that, quarterly taxes. If you've LLCs, S corps, C corps, all of that, if you've got any of those type of questions, either email them to me at todd@truckertodd.net or show up that night and put them in the comments, and we'll try to get him on and answer those questions. He is a very valuable resource, and he has a lot of great information, but he's a very busy guy, and we're lucky to have him on here because he's just a wealth of knowledge. He appears on Sirius XM on the Road Dog channel on Tuesdays. I believe it's at 9:30 in the morning. I don't know the exact time because I always watch it through a little email I get that he sends to me. But you guys check him out if you hadn't, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. Let me get into this. My good friend Mark with a $10 donation. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. He says, "Do you want to see my numbers?" Sure, we can put them up if you want to. I gotta warn you though that I used to do numbers a lot, and half the crowd thinks you're bragging, and half the crowd thinks you're getting ripped off. So if you're comfortable with the criticism, and you want to do that, and you're comfortable with the praise, um, we can sure do it. If you're going to send me anything like that to put up, make sure that we block out any of your personal information so we don't have any identity theft issues or nothing like that. Or if you just want to type your stuff in the comments, we can look at it that way. The problem with that is a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, that's not proof. He just typed it in the comments." But I'm not going to chastise you. Mark is one of those guys that he does good pretty much anywhere he goes. Michael is here. Thanks for coming in, Michael. And again, I don't know if I said it. Thank you, Mark, for that $10 donation. It's not expected, but it's definitely appreciated. I hadn't worked in about 2 months because of that accident, and I've been stretching pennies about as far as I can stretch them. Hopefully, I'll have a trek tomorrow morning. And due to some scheduling issues between me and the owner of the company that I'm going to, it's looking like it's going to be a couple of weeks before I can go to work there. So even after I get the truck, I'm probably still going to be home for a couple of weeks, which was really sucks, but it was unavoidable. And I believe where I'm going is going to be worth the wait. Hey, Todd, just now joining. Hope all is well and you got your check cash. Yeah, I did. We were talking about that at the start of the show, and I'm sure we'll circle back around to it here in a minute. But I want to tell you guys about the expedited trucking show that's going to be July 21st and 22nd in Fort, where is it? Let me make sure I get all this right. It's going to be in, well, crud, I had it right in front of me. Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure I'm right. Uh, the Now you might be asking yourself, why would Trucker Todd be talking about the expedited truck show in Fort Wayne, Indiana? Well, it's actually sponsored by ES Advantage, which is the guys that do the fuel card I use, and they they're putting this on. But Trucker CFO is going to be doing a deal there with SiriusXM, and they're going to be interviewing me for about 30 minutes on that show. So I'll be on satellite radio with thousands of listeners, and so will Contractors Corner, which is another YouTube channel. They'll be on there, and you guys might know it's been contentious in the past between me and them, but we're coming together for this event, and I want to talk about that a second. But first, let me get back to a couple of these questions. Yes, I do have Cash App. It's in my Cash App link, or whatever they call it, is in the description of this video, but it's also on my website, I believe. I believe there's a link you can click on my website, but for sure it's in the description of this video. And let's see what else we got here. I would love to be in your show and talk about people who are looking for a really good company. Yeah, we may do that at some point. I know you're really happy over there, and I watch your videos. We may bring you on at some point. That was supposed to be the purpose of the Tuesday shows, and we're probably going to try to set something like that up pretty soon. But anyway, back to the expedited show and Contractors Corner and me. You know, there's been some stuff said both ways. I've said some stuff I wish I wouldn't have said publicly. They've said some things that I'm sure they regret saying publicly. But here's the deal. To get any kind of traction on YouTube, you have to be putting out something that people want to see. And they do. Charlie on that show is very, very knowledgeable about tires. And I've learned some things about tires from him. Jeff is a numbers guy, and he knows a lot about markets and numbers and things like that. And sometimes the way they put out information is easier for people to digest than the way I put out information. And sometimes the way I put it out is easier to digest than the way they put it out. Um, so when you have a situation like that, sometimes it can become contentious. But we're basically doing the same thing. We're basically both peeling the same apple, but we're peeling it in a different way. And so I hope that we can all come together at that time and not have any craziness. We can all act like adults, and I'm going to be supportive of their show when they go on Sirius, and I hope they'll be supportive of mine as well. And I think it's going to be a good time. You guys know I went to Matt's recently, the Mid America Truck Show. I had a super time. There's also a truck show in Texas in June, and I'm going to have to miss that one. But this expedited one is it's a lot smaller than Matt's. So if you guys are in Fort Wayne that weekend in July, stop by. There's a really good chance you'll run into me, and maybe we can hang out a little bit. Now, why would I care about expedited other than ES Advantage being there, other than Trucker CFO being there? Well, honestly, I've always been a little curious about expedited, but more importantly than that, some of the viewers might be interested in expedited, and I could learn information there that I could pass on to you guys, and I can make videos while I'm there. Also, um, there's a possibility that they're doing something in their operations that might translate into improving my operation and what I do here. So it never hurts to expose yourself to other areas of the market and see what you can learn. But yeah, I'm really excited to go there to try it out, and I hope that I'll see several of you there as well. But again, that's July 21st and 22nd in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And as we get closer to time for this event, I'll provide more details about, when I'm going to be on Sirius XM and things like that. And so you can catch my 30-minute spot. I think he's going to interview a few other people like Contractors Corner, maybe one or two other YouTubers. I have specifically asked that I be the last one, and so I'll be the last person he interviews. So I wanted to put that out there so nobody thinks I was slighted or done around. I specifically asked to be the last one, and so that's how that goes. Let's see what else we got here. What channel will be broadcast on the pre-recorded or done live? Okay, so it'll be on my channel probably Monday morning around 9 a.m. And at that time, I'll show what truck I've selected, and I'll give the details of how the program works. There's different tiers and things like that. So it's going to be really hard for me to give super specifics. But what I'm looking for, and this is a lot like when I came up with the OIDA insurance deal. Is there better deals out there probably than the truck deal I'm doing? Probably. But what I'm trying to do is find a program that will help the most first time buyers get out of a lease purchase and get into their own truck. Now, when I say that, somebody always says, well, what about SFI? You get a brand new truck. Well, the problem with SFI, and I'm not saying I wouldn't do an SFI truck, but the problem with SFI is if you ever want to change companies, it's a like $10,000 to $15,000 ordeal to change companies. And in the deal that I'm going to be doing, or the deal I think I'm going to be doing, I can change companies at any time. It's my truck. I'm buying it from an actual dealership, so I'm not tied to any company. And so it just opens you up and gives you even more freedom. But I want something that, I don't want something that 5% of us can do. And then, I'm bragging, look what I can do and you can't. I want something that 85% of us can do, so that we're all, we're running into each other at these truck shows and we're going, man, I'm doing great. I got my truck, and this is what I'm doing. And I want it to where there's brand selection. There's some of you that you love international, and some of you wouldn't be caught dead in one. And some of you will only drive a Freightliner. And so, um, Freightliner's, a deal breaker for you. You guys know that I like the Peterbilts and the Kenworths, but I've also developed a fondness for the Freightliners. So I wanted some product diversity as well, where guys have a real choice and they're truly an owner operator making their own decisions. Now, if you decide you want to run the spot market like I'm planning to be doing, then we're going to have a different conversation. And honestly, I'm probably going to try to talk you out of it at first, because there's a learning curve there. And if you're not ready for that learning curve, you can lose your tail. And it's not as steady as, say, a mileage based contract like I had at Swift. That's more steady. Might be a little less money, but it's more steady. And when you're on spot market, that is market driven and market determined. And some of it's on you, how good you can negotiate and things like that. How well you can build relationships with others. And so that's what I'd say about that. But I want you to keep that in mind, because as soon as I put this out, somebody's going to go, oh, well, Todd's stupid. I would never do that deal. I would do this deal with my credit union. And again, your credit union probably will give you a better deal, but they won't do it for 85% of us. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find stuff that helps the vast majority of us, not just a few of us. So my good friend Tim Back lives about an hour from Fort Wayne. Man, it'd be great if you could show up there. It'd be great to meet you in person and hang out with you. Like I say, I'm going to be there for a couple of days, and I think it's kind of a small event from what I'm being told. So, yeah, show up and we'll hang out. It'd be great. And I'd like it if you guys could meet each other. If you guys here in the comments could get to know each other. We all kind of joke around down there now, and sometimes we have some pretty funny episodes on here. But it would be great if y'all could get to know each other. And later this year, as soon as I can get a logo developed, the girl that was working on it quit on me. But as soon as we can get a logo developed, we're going to start having merchandise. We'll have Trucker Todd coffee cups and Trucker Todd t-shirts and all kinds of stuff coming, Trucker Todd hats and everything. But we got to get that logo developed, and we'll get that stuff out for you guys. I've got one guy; he's been asking for it for 2 years since I had like 300 subscribers, and at the time I laughed at him and I said, "Nobody wants to see my face on a coffee mug when they're having breakfast in the morning." And he laughed and said, "Yeah, that him and his wife both wanted one." So that stuff is coming. I said, when we get to 5,000 subscribers, we'll start working on it. And here we are nearly at 6,000 and I still hadn't got it done, but I'm working on it. I promise you. It's just it's a slow grind like everything else right now. I will see if I can do home time that weekend. That would be awesome, Tim. SFI is about 12 to 1500 a week with all the insurances and plates and truck payment. If you buy a truck, it's probably 12 to 1500 per month with all insurance, truck payment, and extras. Huge difference. Yeah, maybe I know not know a guy. I got told about a guy. I was talking to an owner of a trucking company this week, and he knew a guy that bought a brand new $225,000 Peterbilt loaded out hood truck, and his monthly payment was 3,500 a month. And he was trying to talk the guy out of doing it. He was explaining to him, if you ever break down, it's going to kill you, and how hard he'd have to run to pay for that truck. But that's what the guy wanted. It was his dream truck. And my payments are going to be about half of what SFIs are. And I hate to get too specific because, like I said, everybody's situation's different. Their credit's different. The company they're going to run for is different. And but yeah, we're going to get into detail about all that because I've had in this market, I've had a lot of people contacting me saying, "Hey, Todd, I need help." And I've been saying, "Bear with me, help is coming." And I'm really excited to show everybody everything here real soon. I have to start driving. All right, Skyline, good deal, man. I appreciate you being here. And by the way, Skyline, before you start driving, I wanted to tell you I did look at your company, and there was one or two things that I read on the website that didn't get me super excited. Not bashing them by any means, but some things I do want to ask you about. And so we may do that. We may pick a Tuesday and bring you on, and I'll ask you about these things and see what you say. Uh, it's uh, it's things that they were kind of concerning to me, but to a lot of people they may not be a big deal. And we may have people that have a lot of questions for you. And the company you're at, there's a lot of companies tied into that, so you may have a lot of great information to share. And we'll get you on. We'll talk about your YouTube channel. We'll do all that here just real soon. As soon as I can get everybody worked in, I've still got people from Matt's that I told them I was going to call and set up interviews with them. And just with the accident and the job change and all of that, everything's just been so chaotic. I haven't got any of that done like I meant to. But yeah, we'll squeeze you in, and I'll bump you up pretty high in the list. We'll get you on in the next couple of weeks or so. Brother, everyone had to learn how to crawl before they could walk. Yeah, exactly. And that's something. Maybe it's this generation. But when I remember, and this is way before truck driving, I was married, I had small kids, I was unemployed, and I went into a restaurant and I said, "Hey, I need a job." And he said, "What do you want to do in the restaurant?" I said, "I got a family. I'll do anything." I said, "It doesn't matter where you put me. I'll work hard and I'll move up." And he was so impressed by that that he offered me a job right then. And he said, "You'd be surprised how many people come in there and they say, 'I need a job, but I won't do this and I won't do that and I won't work these hours.'" And he said, "I knew that you were willing to, be a dishwasher or sweep the floor or whatever I needed." And so he said, "Yeah, I'll hire you." And that's how we need to be now. But so many people want to start at the top, and they want to get the deal that the guy that's been driving 25 or 30 years has, and they want to make what he makes. And some of it is nothing more than knowledge. It's not favoritism. It's not anything like that. It's just learning freight lanes, learning brokers, and how to talk to them. For example, when you're negotiating a rate, and there was a book called "You Don't Have to Be a Shark" by Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank, and he was talking about how you negotiate a raise from your boss. And he said so many people are going to talk to their boss and they'll say, "I need a raise because I can't pay my bills. I got a car payment. I got 3 kids." And he said, "That's not your boss's fault." He said, "When you go in for a raise negotiation," he said, "explain to them why you're valuable to the company. I work on Saturdays. I stay late. I've increased sales this much percent. Things like that." And the same is true here. You've got to learn your trade. And ironically, I'm going to say, I've driven this many years accident free. I've got 100% on time delivery. These are the kind of things that you negotiate. But when you're running the spot market, uh, it's better um, to build a rapport with them, and you do that by you pick up the load on time, you deliver it on time. There's no drama. And then when you call them that next week and you say, "Hey, I'm looking at this load that goes from here to here. You might remember me. We worked together last week on this load." And they go, "Oh, yeah, you were great to work with. You've got a good attitude." Then you've got more leverage than if you're combative or you don't know how to deal with them. And I know this is common sense and everybody should know this, but you'd be surprised how many people don't. And people say, "Well, I'm not going to kiss up to get a load," and it's not kissing up. It's for example, um, my legal name. I actually go by my middle name. I always have, but my legal name. There's a baseball player that has the same name. So every time I would call this one broker, he would tease me about being that baseball player. He's like, "Oh, you drive a truck in your off time." And I would kind of play along with him and laugh with him. And I would get great loads from this guy. And sometimes he'd call me with loads before he even posted them. And same thing when I was at F2F, my very first load, there was a broker in the Odessa area that they said, "Do you mind if we write your number down and we just start calling you before we post stuff?" They said, "We like your attitude. We like dealing with you." And that goes a long way. Um, you could be having a terrible day, but your broker don't need to know it. Your fleet manager doesn't need to know it. You gotta learn to compartmentalize and take care of business. But those those are the things that you'll learn over time and how to do it. And there are good areas and bad areas, and you'll learn where to go and where not to go. Now, I get a heat map every week, which shows the hot and cold areas in the country. But, honestly, it doesn't change that much from week to week, um, unless there's something major that happens in the world. For the most part, it's pretty much the same every week. Um, some areas are great, some areas are bad, and you kind of learn the patterns after a while. It's not rocket science. Let's see who we got. Good friend Ted is here. Yes, sir. Doing good. Not run the spot market in a while. Yeah. I think now I'm starting to feel comfortable about heading that way again. I like it for the freedom. Um, money is great, but it's never been the real reason I drive a truck. I make good money, but the real reason I drove truck is for the freedom and not have somebody staring over my shoulder constantly. Although trucking is going to that slowly, and so that's what I'd say about that is that you want to, or at least for me, I want to experience that freedom. Yeah, a check is important, and I want to make a good living, but I've always been able to do that. It's just that it's now things are changing. Companies are going to inward facing cameras, and it's they're taking all the fun out of trucking is what a lot of us older drivers say. But for sure, you've got a little more control. I was one of the first Swift drivers to go get their own insurance, and that was a big step for Swift and for me because I kind of pioneered that, and several people followed me, and some got my insurance, and some went to Seabright, and that's fine. But with AB5, and I realize it's pretty much dead now for now, but it'll come back. It'll rear its ugly head again at some point. The way to avoid AB5 is to separate yourself from the company as much as you can. And for example, going out and getting your own truck like I'm doing. I'm getting my own base plates. I've checked a couple of states in Mississippi. It'll run me about $1,700 to get my own base plates. In Texas, it's about $1,500. And since I live in Texas, I'll be getting my base plates out of Texas. I'll have my own insurance. I'm getting my own Elite Pass transponder, all those type things. And so, should an AB5 type law come down the road, I've got all these justifications of how I'm not just a glorified company driver. And you can't do this stuff overnight. It takes time. Do a little at a time. Get your accounting set up. Get your own fuel card. Just do a little each week or each month, and one morning you'll wake up and you'll have it all. You'll have it all like you want it. But never be afraid to listen to somebody else's opinion. I hear crazy stuff, and I hear some good ideas. I had a guy this past week that he totally changed my mind about something. Oh, and I'll tell you what it was about getting your own authority. For years, you guys have heard me say there's no way I'd get my own authority. When I got off the phone with him, I said I wouldn't get my own authority right now, but I could see a day in the future when I might, because several of my viewers that are in the comments here told me a few weeks ago, "Hey, Trucker Todd, we'd like you to have your own trucking company, and we'd like you to come work for us, or we'd like to come work for you." And so I thought, man, these are high caliber people, and I might be willing to take a chance on it if I had guys like that. So definitely not right now, but maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, that might be something I look at. Oh, exactly, Gary. This is a great point. And, when I was doing it at DART, people would ask me, "Well, Todd, how do you get the good rates?" And I say, "I do what nobody else wants to do." Everything's based on supply and demand. And the loads that pay good are the ones that go to the places nobody wants to go to, or they've got multiple stops, or, things like that. Everybody in the wintertime would love to stay south of I 40. I hear that all the time. I want to stay at south of I 40 in the wintertime. Well, guess what rates do in the wintertime south of I 40? They drop like crazy because that's where all the drivers are. And everybody goes, "Well, I don't want to go to the Northwest at that time because, I might run into a snowstorm. I might get snowed in." So, uh, guess what loads to the Northwest do? They shoot up. And, you say, "Well, what if I get snowed in? Then all that extra money doesn't mean anything." Well, in this day and age, we've got weather apps, we've got all kinds of resources that we can turn to find out what the weather's going to be, sometimes a week, week and a half in advance. And hey, I'll be the first to admit sometimes the weather guy's wrong. But if you get on there and look, you can kind of figure out strategically when and where to go to make yourself the most money. How many years have you dealt with brokers on your own? Don't include the lease companies. That's not really the same. I mean, actually brokering loads with the broker. So um, I've been doing it about 3 years, and it's kind of hard to answer your question because I was leased on to companies when I did it, but I actually called, negotiated my own rates. They sent me the rate con. In some cases, I signed them. In some cases, I sent them to the company. The company signed them and sent them back to me. But I've been up to that point, and I'm going to be doing something similar to that now. I'll be getting the rate cons and signing them myself. There's a lot of options like that if you've got a proven track record of doing it. And my first experience with it was actually at Roadrunner, and Roadrunner's the ones that taught me how to do it. And then Dart's the first time that I really got to do it on my own. And Swift was somewhere in the middle. They had a load board, but it wasn't ready for prime time. And I was beta testing it. But yeah, I have done all of that. Um, so anyway, I hope I answered your question. Good afternoon, Manny. Glad you could make it. Don't be afraid to break a sweat, work hard, and anyone can succeed. Get your commercial score built up. Yep, yep, exactly. And I believe this deal I'm doing is going to help my business credit. I've got the LLC. I've uh, paid for the S corp, but I don't have it yet, and so that's something that's in the works as well. I run Dandridge, Tennessee to Augusta, Wisconsin. That's not a bad run. That's not a bad run. And that's a minute ago I said that, the heat maps don't really change that much from week to week. It seems like for the most part, the Midwest is always strong. And so when somebody tells me that um, they're having trouble getting loads, they're having trouble getting good rates, I almost always say, well, try to get to the Midwest and see if things get better. But it's I can't tell you every year when winter starts how many calls I get. I don't like driving in the winter. I'm going to stay south of I-40, but I still want to make the money. And I'm like, well, so everybody wants to do that. Do you think you're the first person that thought up that strategy of, well, I'll just run where the weather's good? No, everybody wants to do that, but the brokers know it, and the rates in those areas are going to be terrible. You're going to have to do some stuff that nobody else wants to do. And some of these big YouTubers that you see that they're going, hey, I'm getting these good paying loads. Some of them have 6 or 7 stops, and so it's just if you want to make what they make, you have to do what they do. Just that simple. Wow, here's a guy I hadn't heard from in a while. Gary Barber. Hey, Trucker Todd. Gary Barber from Roadrunner. Nice to hear from you again. Yes, sir. I thought you'd forgot about me. I'm glad you're here. But yeah, that's what I would say about those things. Um, man, Gary, I can't believe you're still at Roadrunner. That was a long time ago. How's things going over there? Let's give everybody a minute to get their comments in. I had a guy in Lubbock. His first name's Colin. That he wanted me to go in and be a broker with him. And we got pretty far in the discussions. This was several years ago. And to the point that I bought a computer and had an office and everything, and I backed out. Um, at that point, I didn't have the knowledge and confidence that I do now. Now I feel like I could do it and be pretty successful at it. But back then, I'd never ran the spot market or done a load board. And I think I'd have got in over my head if I'd have done it back then. And I don't even think he has an office doing it now. I think he's got a small trucking outfit in Lubbock, and and he just brokers for his trucks now. But yeah, at one time I almost became a broker. Then I'd have been on YouTube Broker Todd. If I don't get to work pretty soon, I will be Broker Todd. Well, that's good, Gary. I still talk to Jim and some of the guys over at Roadrunner. It's good to hear that you're doing good. They've made a lot of changes over there, and I hear it's better now. I also talk to Stephanie over there every once in a while, and so good to hear that things are going well for you. Bought my truck 2 years ago, thinking about gonna back to Swift. How is it over there now? So I got in trouble for making a comment about Swift. I said something positive about them. I had several people tell me that freight was picking up at Swift and things were getting better. And several drivers got on to me and said, it's not getting better for me. So the short answer to your question is it depends on who you ask. Now, one of the recruiters over there said that they're telling people that in these market conditions, you should be able to get around 2,000 miles a week. And so that's not great. When I was there, I was somewhere around 23 to 2,800 miles a week, usually right around 25, 2,700. But at 2,000 miles a week, you're making money, but you're not making the kind of money that you want to make. Now, I do believe the market's turning around. I saw it when I was at F2F on the spot market. Rates, I mean, you'd see loads. You'd get in areas and you'd see 2,000 loads, and 80% of them were terrible. But there'd be a few good ones in there. You had to dig around and find them, and and sometimes some heavy negotiation took place. But I do believe things are starting to rebound slowly. It's not happening as fast as any of us would like us to, and so yeah. But I do think things are getting better, and it's why I'm comfortable going back into the spot market. Why I wanted to do it at F2F. I still like F2F. I'm not a big fan of their insurance company. They called me as recently as today and asked me if my truck was in the shop being repaired. And that means they didn't know that I got released from the company. They didn't know that my truck had been totaled and they had already paid me. So what it was, they had two insurance companies involved, and I just believe it was too many cooks in the kitchen. But as recently as today, I received 2 or 3 calls asking me about my truck, if it was almost out of the body shop, if which body shop was fixing it, things like that. And emails, phone calls. It's been a crazy day. I can't believe that their insurance companies wouldn't be more organized and know what's going on better than that. Yeah, that's right, Broker Todd. That's not a lot of miles. I agree completely. It's not a lot of miles to me. 2,000 miles, that's a regional job in my mind. That's something you do in say 4 or 5 days and you go home for the weekend. That's terrible for over the road. And you hear guys reporting at Swift that they're doing 2 34-hour resets a week, and not because they're running that hard, but just because they're having trouble getting loads. And let's be honest for a second. Swift lost a few accounts. That's not a slam on them. Every company picks up freight and loses freight. It's just part of the business. They sign contracts, and at the end of the contract, somebody will underbid them by just a little, and these warehouses will change. But to me, the sales staff needs to be out pounding the pavement. You don't sit at your desk and wait for the phone to ring. You go out and knock doors and you find freight. When I sold cars, if there wasn't any customers on the lot, the sales manager expected you to find some. He wanted you to get on Facebook and post pictures of cars, and they'd bring you a big stack of credit applications of people that had decided not to buy or their credit got turned down. And they'd say, hey, it's been 6 months since this guy was here. Call him, see if you can get him back up here. his credit score wasn't quite high enough then, but maybe it is now, or him and his wife decided to wait a little while to buy a car. Maybe they're ready now. And that's what you did when it was slow. You didn't just sit around and go, oh, it's slow. We don't know what to do. And that seems to be what the sales department of Swift is doing. They're just sitting there saying, oh, it's slow. There's no freight. We don't know what to do. And the second part of that is, remember what I said a minute ago about building relationships? Well, that's what your customer service reps are supposed to do. They're supposed to build relationships with these warehouses and these shippers so that when freight is slow, they're calling these CSRs and saying, hey, we don't have a lot of freight, but we like you. We'd like you to manage our load. And I think the CSRs are kind of slacking off as well. But, I may be full of baloney. That's just my 2 cents on it. Hey, Russell Freight Services, thanks for being here, man. I'm a crazy man of miles, 3,000 miles plus every week. Yeah, I got my miles at Swift. Swift, the problem with Swift was never the money. I did fine financially there. It's the right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing, and constant change, which it's hard to plan, and it's super hard to make YouTube videos when they tell you something on Tuesday and on Thursday it's entirely different, and they're saying the opposite. And the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and I still love it there. I still say good things about them. But the straw that broke the camel's back for me is when I found out what the final version of the load board was going to be. So when I was beta testing it, they paid us deadhead for the first 100 miles. And then after that, we had to get it approved if we had more than 100 miles of deadhead, which is very possible in this market right now to have a little more deadhead. About 20% is kind of normal right now. And so if you do a 3,000 mile week, 600 miles of it's probably going to be deadhead. And when they release it to the public, they're not going to pay deadhead anymore. So that's going to result in about a 20% cut in pay. Now, those of you that have ran the spot market are going to say, well, that's normal. You don't get paid deadhead when you run a load board. And that's true because you're negotiating your own rate and you can negotiate that rate in there. But when Swift is paying you a mileage pay and they say, we're no longer going to pay you for mileage for that, and if you don't like it, just let us dispatch you and then we will pay you, then that's just cutting your pay for freedom. And let's just be honest. So there's going to be some guys that'll do it. They don't know any better, but I'll go ahead and say it. I'm too good for that. I'm not going to purposefully cut my pay just so I can have a convenience. And the other thing we need to say about that load board is it's the exact same freight. As a matter of fact, they said if we put broker loads on there, you won't even know they're broker loads. And so, that's how they drew me there to begin with, was their load board. I thought of the great Night Swift organization and all the freight that would be on there. And it turned midnight and the princess became a pumpkin. And I just, I don't knock anybody for doing it. I met a lot of great people there. I'm going to be associating with some of those people at that Expedite Trucking Show in Fort Wayne on July 21st and 22nd. But I decided that there was better options for me. And so I made a vertical move. Without a doubt, F2F was a better move for me. Now that ended tragically, and it was not F2F's fault. I don't believe it was my fault either. I can't comment on what I believed happened just yet, but I can tell you there's going to be some developments coming in the next few weeks regarding that. Geez, 2,000 miles. I did 3,300 this week. Got a 34-hour reset. Oh, get this. I met a U.S. Express driver one time that was mad because he said his fleet manager wanted him to run 400 miles a day. And I laughed. I said, I'd be ticked if I was only running 400 miles a day. But yeah, that's, there's different types of runners out here. And that, let's just be honest. There's uh there's some guys out here, Tim, that they never could run the miles you ran, and then there's some guys that do it week in and week out, and I don't want anybody to push themselves and do anything dangerous, but it helps to know what you can do and what your limits are, and know when to pull over and call it. It's not worth losing your life out here. Swift owns U.S. Express. I wonder on how that happened. Yeah, so U.S. Express, if you go back and look at their stock prices, their stocks were on the drop, and then right before Knight Swift took them over, their stocks kind of shot up a little bit. So they were a company in turmoil. They tried to save themselves by creating Variant, and from what I understand, they have a lot of dedicated freight, and Knight Swift is going to kind of do with them like Knight did with Swift. They're going to leave them independent, but they're going to kind of streamline some of their processes, make things better. I was real skeptical when Knight took merged with Swift, but they did make a lot of positive changes, and Swift is in a better financial position now than it was at the time of the merger, and hopefully they can do the same for U.S. Express. My good friend Joe Wentz coming to the rescue again with $20. Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Um, you guys have really come through for me these last 2 months, and unfortunately, I don't know if y'all caught it. The place that I'm going to work, small outfit, we're going to talk about them vaguely pretty soon. Due to scheduling things, I'm probably not going to be able to do orientation with him till probably the first week in June. I am picking up a truck tomorrow, and then I'll drive it back to Texas and load all my stuff in it. So I just got to survive the next week and a half, 2 weeks. But you guys have definitely been a lifesaver, and I appreciate each and every one of you for what you do. As again, I don't get on here on Tuesdays and Thursdays and go, well, I expect this and I expect that. Matter of fact, it's the exact opposite. I'm shocked every time y'all do stuff like this, but you guys have literally saved my neck, and I appreciate each and every one of you for sure. There's a big difference when a company dispatches you and when you dispatch yourself through brokers and negotiate a rate. If you're being dispatched, they should always pay deadhead. Yes, sir, I agree. I've been called everything but a human being for saying what you just said, but I agree. And it's there's a real simple solution for this. If Swift's goal is they don't want to pay deadhead, then fine, don't pay deadhead, but pay percentage so people can negotiate their rate. And Swift has a few percentage contracts that are like 55%, and that's not reasonable either. You guys have heard me say I think Landstar being at 65% is highway robbery. So if I think 65% is highway robbery, I really think 55% is. Get it up 70, 80, 90%, depending on what you offer. Now there's companies that offer 90%, but they nickel and dime you with fees and things like that. And then there's companies that offer 70%, but they pay a bunch of stuff, your base plates, your tolls, your things like that. So their 70% is really a lot more than what it sounds like it is. You can't just go to a company because they promise you a big number. You have to look at it and see what's included in that number. And I I really wish I could tell you about it tonight, but there's a lot to that. The place I'm going, he uh, he has two different ways. You can either have your own trailer, or he's got two different ways you can get a trailer from him. But whatever the percentage you pay, one of them's I think 82% and one of them's 75%. Uh, he covers everything else in his percentage, the ELD, the all that other stuff that companies usually charge you for. And yeah, of course, you've got to get your what is it? The oh crap, the physical damage and bobtail. I'm drawing a blank. I'm so tired. But yeah, it's instead of just looking at the number, look what's included in that number. And that's where a lot of these foreign-based Chicago companies get people. They go, "Oh, we'll give you 88%." But they chop the load once before they figure the 88%. And then they got all these little fees, administrative fees and trailer fees. And by the time they get done with you, 65% would have been a better rate than their 88%. Won't ever work for them. They brag how well they're doing, never mention anything about the billions of dollars they filed on bankruptcy. Yeah, I get what you're saying. But the truth is, a lot of companies do that. And I realize just because everybody's doing it, don't make it right. But it's kind of like my dad. My dad used to work at the hospital and he was a respiratory therapist. And he would talk about, somebody will go in for an MRI and it might cost that hospital in actual money about $100 or $150 to do an MRI, counting labor and everything. Well, if the person doesn't pay, say the MRI, and I don't know what one costs nowadays. Let's say the MRI is $4,000, and it really costs the hospital $100 to do it. If the patient don't pay, the hospital will say, "Well, we lost $3,900." When in actuality, they didn't really lose $3,900 because it didn't cost them $4,000 to do the MRI. It it's Now you could say, well, that's what they should have been paid, but maybe they shouldn't be charging 40 times what it costs to do a procedure. And some of that's insurance. A lot of you may not be aware of this, but your medical expenses, if you go to your doctor and you say you're self-pay, your prices are much different than if you say you've got insurance. And there's some reasons for that. Part of it is the hospitals and the doctors have to wait a lot longer to get their money from the insurance company, sometimes 30, 60, 90 days. And so that's what I would say about that. Whereas if you are a self-pay, they're getting their money right then, and they don't have to worry about like Medicaid, for example. Medicaid will call the hospital and say, I know you normally get this rate for X-rays, but we want you to discount it to this rate, and that's all we're going to pay you." Well, a self-pay doesn't do that. So for the hospital, they'd rather discount it for you a little bit than they had deal with all the crap the insurance companies are going to throw at them. And there's all this coding and other stuff that takes place. So you kind of get why the hospitals do jack up their prices as in the way that they do. But um, trucking companies do the same thing. They say, "Oh, we lost this amount of money last year," and they might have lost compared to what they projected they would make, but they were still profitable. Uh, and so that's what I would say about that. It's what they used to call. I want to say it was when Clinton was in office. They called it fuzzy math, and there's a little bit of fuzzy math going on there with some of these trucking companies. I'm surprised that Covenant is still around. Yeah, me too. I'm, and from what I hear, they're doing pretty good right now. That's shocking. I thought they were on death's door several times in my last 26 years. You should check with a few personal brokers to see if they can work you for a couple of weeks while you're waiting to get to orientation. Yeah, there's some stuff going on there. Yeah, I've got a lot of revenue streams. There's some side work stuff that I'm trying to set up, but just like none of that stuff, especially in a college town, pays very well. And so you say, like I talked about a minute ago, my base plate's $1,500 in Texas. Um, it would take several weeks of doing side work to get that $1,500. And YouTube pays a little, but not enough to sustain yourself. I'm nickel and diamond by. We're definitely not living the life we were, and probably never will be able to again, or at least in the near future. And so But yeah, I've been looking. If you guys want some entertainment, get on Craigslist and look for jobs in Lubbock, Texas. It's pretty sparse. There's some milk runs, but they want to keep you permanently. And I'm friends with the owner of a trucking company in Lubbock, a few trucking companies actually. And I could probably do some casual work for them, but I got to be careful because if I do that, then the company I'm about to lease onto might have to do an employment verification on them to be good with DOT. But I used to do a deal like that for a company that's no longer in Lubbock, but they had a truck dealership, and I used to run trucks. Well, sometimes I'd fly out and bring them back to Lubbock or Odessa, and sometimes I'd shuttle them between Lubbock and Odessa when I needed extra money or on my days off. And they went out of business in Lubbock, so that's not an option no more. But yeah, it's a tough market right now. But I've thought about doing some things like that. I'm also friends with some finance companies in Lubbock that would let me fly out and get repos and bring them back to Lubbock and things like that. So there may be a chance to do some of that stuff uh, in the future. We'll see. But that's a great suggestion, Tim, for sure. Yeah, I'll have to look. I just Lubbock is a weird area for freight, and it's improving. They've put a couple of Amazons in and some stuff like that, so it's getting better. But it's just a strange area. A lot of trucking companies are afraid to go there, and so that's worked to my advantage this so far. I had a guy the other day that offered me he had an abandoned truck in Lubbock, and he offered to let me take it to Los Angeles to his terminal, and he would fly me back to Lubbock. But I just got a bad vibe about him, and I told him thanks, but no thanks. Also, that guy I told you about calling, I could probably go do some stuff for him. There's been so much stuff up in the air that now that I've got this truck, maybe things will calm down a little. But I still got a lot to do. You know, when you get your own base plates, you got to go get a scale ticket, and you in Texas, you've got to go get a state inspection on top of your annual inspection. And there's just all these little hoops they make you jump through. When I bought that Volvo, it took me 3 days, and I mean 3 full days of running around to get the stuff before they would transfer the title from Illinois to Texas. And so it's a process, and I don't want to be out chasing a dollar and losing $10. So I got to be available for that stuff when they need me. It's not too bad, brother. Better than Nova lines. Yeah, Nova, I've met some people that are happy there. The problem with Nova is their flatbed, and I really don't want to do flatbed. The reason they charge so much is they are charging the consumer the price for the MRI machine and all the payroll and hospital upkeep. Yeah, and that would be a valid argument if that was the only thing they were doing in the hospital. But, if you go in for a procedure, you've got every single department that bills you separately. So each department is self sufficient. If you're having a surgery, there's the anesthesiologist, there's several doctors, several nurses. The hospital has a charge. So they're getting their money. I don't have a lot of sympathy for that. Also, if they're a county hospital, they're being subsidized by the county. In Lubbock, Texas, it's UMC, and Texas Tech is holding them up. So they're building on. Um, they're not suffering. Now, I'm not advocating that anybody not pay their hospital bills or something like that, but I think there's a milking taking place for sure. And I think that the hospitals, first of all, I think if they could reduce their prices, their collection rate would go way up. People would pay more. When you get a bill in the mail and it says you owe the hospital $30,000, a lot of people throw their hands up and go, "Well, I can't pay that." And then you get a bill in the mail and it's $10, and you go, "Well, it's only $10. I'll pay it." And I just think that's the deal. They scare people. Now I've got an uncle that he'll call the hospital and he'll pay them $50 a month for the rest of his life. And there's a percentage of the population that'll do that too. So I'm just saying there should be a way to make it more affordable. The United States has one of the most expensive healthcare systems in the world, if not the most expensive. I hadn't looked at the latest stat, but there for a while they were one of the most expensive in the world. And we're definitely an over medicated country. We take more prescription drugs in this country than any other country in the world by a large margin, especially antidepressants and things like that. And I believe there's some programming going on there because um, we're in the land of opportunity. We're in the greatest country in the world, yet we have the most depressed people. And I don't want to get political, but just something for you to think about. We've got the most reason in the world to be optimistic, and we're sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves. Smaller companies can pay more and cover more because they don't have the overhead that the mega carriers have. I always say if they would cut the fat, they could pay drivers more. Yeah, at one time when I worked for Swift, they had more departments than General Motors and bragged about it. And, they've got, I don't want to call anybody out, but they've got some departments at Swift that are definitely fat that could be trimmed. And I'll get myself in all kinds of trouble if I name one of them that comes to mind quickly. But if you watch a few YouTube videos from their channel, you can figure it out pretty quick. Covenant bought smaller companies, but a lot of their debt on them and put them out of business. Yep, there you go. That happens a lot too. And I've heard, I don't know for a fact, but I heard that when Knight acquired Swift, that Swift had a lot of debt that Knight had to take, and that it was real hard on them. But you hear so much stuff, and we're not in the rooms when the decisions are made, so you don't really know for sure. But I just hate to see anybody lose their job. And oftentimes, when there's a merger or a buyout, half the drivers quit, and the other half seem to lose their job. And a very small percentage stay there through the change. And some of it's just us as drivers don't like change. I think I'm fairly good with change, but my problem, and somebody asked me this, which I thought was funny. We're going to talk about that too. We had somebody asked me recently, why do you change jobs so much? And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, well, you was only at Swift 10 months. And I went and looked at his work history. He worked for Swift for 10 months and quit. So some of it's the pot calling the kettle black. And, if, and maybe this is a flaw of mine, but if I see an opportunity to better myself, then I'm going to do it. Equipment, job. I'd be silly not to. That's what businesses do. They, if Walmart sees that putting a store in a neighborhood will better their business, they go ahead and do it. They don't listen to the criticism. Well, you build too many stores. They go, oh, this is a thriving market that needs a store. We're going to put one in there. And I don't feel like you ought to have to apologize for trying to better yourself, for trying to improve your life. And do I ever make a mistake? Absolutely. In hindsight, I'd have probably been better off staying at Swift than going to F2F and having the accident. Had I had the accident at Swift, I'd probably still have a job there. They're probably more forgiving about accidents. So I've got an email. If it ever gets said that, uh, F2F hasn't offered me a job back or nothing like that, I'll show the email. They want me back. I wish I was still there. We were a good fit for each other. Insurance has got involved, and that made things sticky. But they're a good outfit with good people, or at least they were to me. And so I'm not going to get on here and badmouth them just because it didn't work out. But yeah, if I was somewhere and I wasn't happy, and they called me and said, "Hey, Todd, we'd like to have you back," then I would definitely consider them again. But the guy that I'm about to start working with seems like a pretty stand up guy. He's old school, like a lot of the cotton farmers and stuff I know that, you know, a handshake and looking you in the eye is a lot more important than a contract. Now, there's still going to be contracts because, unfortunately, in this day and age, we have to have them. But he's a kind of a look you in the eye, tell you how it is kind of guy. And I think he and I are going to work really well together. I've had to call him on a few things this week, and he's been outstanding, Johnny on the spot. And he still continues to drive, even though he runs his company. And his wife helps him run that company, and they do a bang up job. I actually found out about them through one of you guys, actually, or gals. It was actually a female. I don't know why that matters, but anyway, she suggested them, and I said, "Well, I'll give him a call." And I honestly wasn't expecting a lot when I called him, but he's really been impressive so far. Oregon is a little different. The mechanic has to be ASC certified, and ASC has to be kept current. Yeah, yeah, that's probably true. I don't know enough about mechanic certifications to know a lot about that. I'm not saying it's right, just what the hospitals are doing. They're charging customers for all their out of pocket costs so they can make huge profits. Yeah, and bringing that back to trucking, uh, I've had people tell me, "Man, do you know how much your company's making off of you?" I say, "No, but I hope it's a lot because it's job security. As long as I'm getting a good paycheck, I could care less how much they make off of me. I hope they make a lot because when they make a lot of money, then they can pay bonuses. Then they can buy nicer equipment. Then they can upgrade the terminals. So I don't have any financial envy. I hope that my employer does very well so that I've got a stable place to work. And you say, well, you're self-employed, you're 1099. I'm still getting freight from them. I'm still getting, in some cases, services from them, things like that. So whatever trucking company I'm running under their authority, I'm that's the team I play for. That's the team I want to do well. And but I'm not going to trash a company just because it ends either. And F2F was great to me. And so I don't have anything bad to say about them. But yeah, but I get what you're saying, Tim. I really do. Wesley Baxley says hello. Hey, man, I hope you're feeling better and doing better. Hello, Todd. I came upon your channel recently and really appreciate all the great info you provide. I look forward to your live talks. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It, I had one of my friends, James, he tried for about, oh man, at least a year and a half, 2 years to get me to do these. And I said, I don't want to do one. Nobody's going to watch and I'm going to be embarrassed. And we've got a steady following. And if I miss one, people are calling and texting me, hey, where's your live? I parked my truck so I could watch you tonight. And I never expected it to be like this, but I'm glad y'all enjoy them. I've had some of you ask that I do them every night of the week. And honestly, I'm just not at the point where I can do that yet. I still drive a truck full time, or at least I did until about a month ago. And so there's just not enough hours in the day. Lately, my days have been filled with trying to find a good truck and a deal that I could tell you guys about so you guys could get your own truck, and trying to find a good job. And that accident, whether I'm found at fault or not, was not a feather in my cap. It didn't help me at all. It didn't hurt me as bad as some of you thought it would, but definitely wasn't something that I'm proud of or that amplified my career. And so definitely, if there's a second one, that could be the nail in the coffin. So I'm going to have to, and we should be doing this anyway. I'm going to have to be a careful, courteous driver, and do what I know how to do. And this other stuff's going to work itself out. I can't wait to tell you what really happened. But for now, just know that things are happening behind the scenes. And as soon as I can share with you guys anymore, I'm going to for sure, because I think it's a learning deal that we can all learn from. And I think you're going to find it entertaining. All the people and all the stuff's been said, and all the pictures that are circling around the internet. I can't wait to give my side of the story just as soon as I can. Matter of fact, as recently as today, I was asking, can I tell my side yet? And they're saying, don't do it yet. One of them asked me to wait a couple of months. And so we'll see. We'll see. I'm seeking counsel from other people, and trying to decide what I can say, when I can say it, and what action, if any action, should be taken. Depression equals I don't want to work or take care of myself, so I will claim depression so everyone else feels sorry and takes care of me. You know, there's something to that. I One day I was listening to satellite radio, and I heard somebody on there say, if you're depressed, go to your local soup kitchen and volunteer for a day. And they said, well, how's that going to help me? And they said, because it takes the focus off of you and it puts it on somebody that needs it. And they said the same thing for people that were like, oh, I can't find a date, or I'm lonely. They said, go volunteer at your local soup kitchen. And they said, you may meet a coworker there, and a fellow volunteer that that it works out for you. But they said, then you're going to meet somebody that's not self-centered and focused on themselves. They're focused on other people. So when I meet people, and I've got people in my family that struggle with depression, I tell them, why don't you go do some volunteer work? Volunteer at your church, something like that. Get you a part-time job. And like you said, Tim, there's always an excuse. Oh, my back hurts, my leg hurts, I've got this problem, I've got that problem. But yeah, that's a great point you make. It seems like depression and laziness go hand in hand. And I'm not trying to discount. I know there's depression, and I know through that people go through traumatic things in their lives, and things like that. But you can determine. You can't determine what's going to happen to you, but you can determine how you're going to react to what does happen to you. And that's what you got to do. Let's see. Nova charged me for 2 weeks of leasing payments. I went through Pape Kenworth, had to call and raise Cain about it, still waiting to get paid. That's something else I want to talk about. I'm glad you brought that up, Michael. I propose a new law. You guys should take this to your congressman. This should definitely be a law. The average length of time it takes an insurance company to settle a claim should be the amount of time you have to pay your premiums. There should be that grace period. So if it takes your insurance company an average of 3 months to settle a claim, then you should have a 3-month grace period to pay your premiums. I bet that would help these insurance companies speed up these claim processes. I got my check. It took almost exactly a month from the accident. And I'm told that's very quick, and I'm told that it's because F2F was putting pressure on the insurance company because of who I am and things like that. But it should not take a month to settle it. And if it does, then you should have a month to pay your premiums. Company-wide, everybody that's insured with that company should have a month, if that's how long the average settlement is. And they said mine was fast, so I'm figuring it's 2 or 3 months. These insurance companies aren't in any kind of hurry to to take care of you. And meanwhile, you're sitting at home, about to lose your trucking business and everything, just because they don't want to interfere with their coffee break. Something to think about. I had to leave for a bit, so I'll have to watch the replay. That's all right, Daryl. That's something I want to thank each and every one of you for. Typically, by the time we go off air, we usually have around 200 views. It will over double the first 24 hours. What that means is a lot of you are out there working, or you're spending time with your family, but you're still taking the time to listen to my videos later when you're driving. Don't watch them, just listen while you're driving. But I appreciate each and every one of you. Those of you that are watching on the replay, obviously I like to have you here live because you can, put comments. We can have a discussion. But I equally appreciate you guys that watch the replay. And so I know I do this a lot, but I really am grateful to each and every one of y'all. It's you let us ask questions and try your best to answer them in your social with us. I try. Unfortunately, especially here lately, as you guys know, I carry two phones, and one of them has two numbers on it. It has an eSIM and it has a regular SIM. So I've got three numbers on two phones. And the phone that has two numbers on it's been acting haywire lately. That's also the phone that I beta test for Google with. I'm beta testing Android 14, and it's been having a lot of problems lately. So if any of you have tried to reach out to me, I'm not ignoring anybody, but stuff does fall through the cracks. You can go to the website truckertodd.net, and there's a deal there where you can send me a message. You can email me at todd@truckertodd.net. I don't purposefully um, neglect your stuff, but if I miss one, if it falls through the cracks, send me another message. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I don't want any of you to feel like I'm avoiding you or neglecting your question or anything like that. Yeah, I have them go to talk to some veterans who are paid minimum wages per month to have body parts blown off and watch these. Yeah, that's something that really is frustrating. Is that there's and it's my understanding that Trump was trying to improve some of that, but for healthcare, there's veterans that are waiting months and in some cases years for treatment and help, and that shouldn't happen. And I don't know what the solution is, but we got to find a way to better medically take care of veterans that are injured in the line of duty. Like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the answer is, but if a veteran has a major medical issue, it shouldn't take 3 or 4 months before they can see a doctor. And if it is going to take that long, then the government should send them to a private physician that could see them right away. It's it's crazy. Vets for a while, they don't know what depression is. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Now that's a different deal though. Then we're talking about PTSD, and I don't want to discount that at all. Those guys see and experience things that most of us couldn't handle, and so we should bend over backwards to help them, get them whatever we need, whatever they need. Um, as you probably know, a lot of our homeless population is former vets that have mental issues, and I think it's sad to see them, in California sitting in a ditch suffering after they risked their lives for this country. So yeah, there should be a solution there somewhere, but I hadn't quite figured it out yet. It's just a big mess. Every says their depression, want to medicate, and really want to depression or unhappy, go find someone. Yep, exactly. It That's another thing. You guys know I take Ozempic, and it's like $2,500 a month. And to me, that sounds crazy. Now, at one point in my life, I was paying cash for that medicine, $2,500 a month. I did get the healthcare.gov insurance. Now I pay, I think, $25 or $30 a month now. But what does the guy do that doesn't have insurance and he needs that Ozempic? And I don't believe any drug. My dad was on a medication for leukemia that was over $10,000 a month, and I think it's gone up to like $15,000 a month. I just don't, what are they making that medicine out of that it needs to cost $15,000 a month? And this isn't a lose weight drug or something like this. This is to prevent leukemia, cancer. So it doesn't seem right. And like again, I'm having a conflict with myself because the capitalist in me says free trade, free enterprise, supply and demand. It's worth what it's worth, but at the same time, we shouldn't be selling cancer drugs for 10 or 15,000 a month, in my opinion. When I was in the Army, I got paid less than 900 per month back in the 90s. Thank God I never saw a war, but if I had, I would have worked my tail off for my. Yeah, exactly. Yep. I don't know, man. I've said this before. You think about the World War II generation and how they all band together for the country. And I worry about if this country was ever invaded now because uh, I can see Russia or China or somebody attacking us, and we'd be too busy trying to figure out what bathroom to use or what gender we were or how to start our electric car, and instead of having some patriotism. And the sad thing is a lot of these people would turn and help the Russians and the Chinese attack this country. It's hard to believe that we have so many people that hate this country. Yeah, and I guess the other part of that is a lot of people don't realize it doesn't matter what minimum wage is. Um, I used to hear Rush say, "Well, if $10 an hour is fair, why not 15? 15 would be really fair, and if 15 is really fair, why not 100? And if 100's fair, why not 200?" And the problem is, it doesn't matter what minimum wage is because as soon as you raise minimum wage, prices go up. So, and we've already seen it. What is minimum wage now? Like $7.25 an hour, and bread's what, $2 and something a loaf or more. And I can remember when bread was under $1 a loaf. Of course, minimum wage was like $3, but it's that's the problem. You give they keep saying a living wage, and that's a really great political term that makes no sense. Um, because a living wage is whatever you can live on, and if you budget yourself, you can live on a lot less than you think you can. There's homeless people that are living on $5 a day. Now, it may not be the lifestyle you want to live, but that's why you get out and work your butt off. I mean, there's people, and we all know them, we've all got family members this way, that they work 35 hours a week and they think, oh, I'm struggling, I can't make it. They don't ever think, hey, I could get a part time job in the evenings, I could work on the weekends. Um, you're not going to die if you work more than one job. Most of us have grandparents that work 2 or 3 jobs, or great grandparents. But yet now we're thinking, oh, 40 hours a week is the maximum I can work. And then we got truck drivers out here that are, we got truck drivers out here that they, they're working 70 hours a week and trying to figure out how they can work more. And to me, that's the opposite issue. If you're working 70 hours a week and you can't take care of your family, the problem's not that you need to be able to work more. It's that you need to take a look at the company you're working at, or maybe at your situation, and figure out why you can't make it on 70 hours a week. You've got to have a work-life balance. There's more to life than just how much money you can put in the bank. Diesel Tech's agreeing with me. Don't forget about pronouns. But we have professional athletes being paid millions, and yeah. Now again though, that's a different deal too, because I'm going to go a little ways back here. But Deion Sanders, when he went to the Cowboys, they made enough just off of T-shirt sales to pay his salary. Now, maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong, but the thing I don't understand is why stadium tickets have to be so high. All of these major NFL teams, NBA teams, Major League Baseball teams have TV contracts and things like that. Um, make tickets, $10, $15 where Joe Sixpack can take his kids to watch a baseball game, or he can go watch the NFL, something like that. And the reason they don't is the stadiums are filling. So they're going to keep raising prices until the stadiums quit filling. And people thought, well, I'll just quit going to stadiums. I'll watch it on TV. That's what created blackouts where if you live close to the stadium, they wouldn't let you do that. But yeah, that's what we need to keep in mind. The professional athletes actually generate the money, and are they overpaid? I think we all agree that they are, but um, they argue, this used to be the argument for quarterbacks. Well, they could be injured permanently. And that's true, they could be. But now we've got it to where you can only hit the quarterback in certain areas. And they've really protected the quarterbacks to where they're not injured like they were in the 70s and the 60s. Even before that, when they had the leather helmets with no face mask. Um, the odds of them getting a permanent, life threatening injury is pretty rare. Now, does it happen sometimes? Sure. But I mean, there's truck drivers that get permanently injured, and we're not earning that kind of money. There's mechanics that get injured, and they're not earning that kind of money. Within 100 miles of my house, there's oil field workers that get killed and lose arms and legs and fingers and hands all the time, and they make good money, but they don't make professional athlete money. They don't understand what minimum wage means. It means the cost for what the company makes from consumers. Raise the minimum. Yep, exactly. Exactly. And for me, I would like to see a market driven um, minimum wage. And we've experienced that in Lubbock. Right now, you can get a pretty decent paying job in Lubbock working in a restaurant because nobody wants to do it. I can remember when restaurant work was 10 or 15 cents above minimum wage. Now we've got restaurants paying $15, $18 an hour just because they need workers. So, if you're, and this, we have to discuss skilled labor and unskilled labor. But if nobody wants to do your job, then yeah, your rate's going to go up, whether the government intervenes or not. So we don't need the government telling us what minimum wage is. The market will tell us what minimum wage is. And if there's some bad actors that don't want to pay, then people will quit working there. Why would you work at McDonald's if Burger King would pay you $1 an hour more? Why would you work at Burger King if Wendy's would pay you 50 cents more than them? And that people don't realize there's a competition going on there. And just like when you order something on Amazon and you're trying to get the very best deal you can, employers are trying to get the best deal they can too. A lot of people today think they should collect a stipend just to sit on their butt. I'm 60 and I worked 3 jobs at one time in my past. There you go. Yeah. And we can talk about that for a second too. Um, there is a government model that does do that, and it's called communism, and it's failed every single time it's ever been tried in human history. Um, the communism basically makes everybody equal, and if your dad was a welder, you'll be a welder. If your dad was a farmer, you'll be a farmer. And it doesn't reward creativity. It doesn't reward hard work. It basically says everybody's the same. And that's part of why this country thrives, is because you can be anything you want to be. You can do anything you want to do. And unfortunately, a lot of people, the only thing they want to do is feel sorry for themselves. Now, here's the flip of it, and I'm glad Wesley said this. So, Wesley says he can't work anymore, but he is the exception. And I've got some exceptions in my family. But Wesley had a medical issue where he can't drive a truck no more. And I believe we should have programs in place to help people that, through no fault of their own, they can't work anymore. Maybe people that are born with birth defects or something like that. We should have programs in place for them. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about guys that their only flaw in life is they're lazy and they don't want to work. They want somebody else to take care of them. And I'll be honest, this is going to get me in trouble. I think a lot of our people that are in prison right now are there because they don't want to work. I think they habitually commit crimes because they get 3 meals a day and a place to stay. And so that's what I'll say about that. But they don't realize, if you're a career criminal, you're never going to have a vacation. You're never going to have a wife and kids, and that you're never going to experience the successes you receive on the outside. You're going to get 3 mediocre meals a day and a little cot to sleep on. And there's so much more to life than what they're getting to experience. Not in Oregon, 13.50 in Medford area, 15 an hour. There you go. And see, you have to count that in too. It depends on what the cost of living is there. There's some areas of the country, Mississippi, for example, that'd be a pretty good wage down there. However, in New York City, you'd starve to death on that wage. So you kind of have to weigh the cost of living with the area you're in. But again, you don't need the government to set a national minimum wage. The market will set the minimum wage. If you and I open a coffee shop and we try to hire guys for $8 an hour and we don't get any applications, then we're going to sit down and have a discussion. Maybe we should pay $9 an hour. And if we're still not getting any applications, maybe $11 an hour. And we're going to drive the minimum wage up. We don't need Congress to do it. Yeah, and in Wesley's case, I mean, to me, you've earned that. You went out, you risked your life, and now you have a medical issue. And we're not talking about you. We're talking about 21-year-olds that lay around, smoke pot all day. There's nothing wrong with them. They just don't want to work. And then they say, poor me, poor me. We're not talking about guys that have served their country. We're not talking about guys that develop health issues beyond their control. I think everybody in here agrees we ought to take care of those people. There's a difference between can't work and won't work, Wesley. It's understandable if you're impaired or if you're claiming a fake disease to work the system so you don't have to work. Yeah, I know a guy from my hometown that he knew from his junior high school days that when he became an adult, he was going to get on SSI and live in government housing or with his mom. He didn't want to work. He enjoyed playing video games. He enjoyed smoking pot, and he was just a lazy, worthless human being. There's a big difference between that guy and Wesley. That guy never served his country. He doesn't have anything wrong with him physically. Wesley's got issues that need to be dealt with. He served his country, and he's earned the right to get those benefits. And so when we talk about stuff like that, we're not singling out guys that have a legitimate need. Same thing with food stamps. If that's what they're there for, is temporary help. But if you look at your family tree and your last 5 generations has been on food stamps, there's a problem there. And you need to figure out if maybe you're grooming your kids to be in that welfare system. But hey, in this market, if you lose your job, you need food stamps for 6 months till you can find another job and get on your feet. That's a totally different situation. Yeah, Damien, sorry you missed it. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I'm going to look at it. I did a drive-by on it today. I would have got it today, but my salesman was having a root canal this afternoon, and so we agreed to meet in the morning. And the paperwork lady for the contracts and stuff leaves at noon, so we've got to get up there early and get it done quickly in the morning. And I hope to put out a video Monday morning around 9 a.m. Central Time, showing you the truck and showing you how you can get a similar deal if you need to. And because I really want people to get off lease purchases and have the freedom that we all become independent contractors for. And so that's it's a suggestion, and I'm not going to pimp any trucking company. You can take that truck and go wherever you think you'll be the happiest. Now, if you ask my opinion, I'll give you suggestions, but I just think that you can make better decisions for yourself than other people can. And I just want to get you the tools, which in this case would be a truck, so that you can do what you need to do. Our tax dollars build the stadium, but we can't afford to attend. Well, that's another good point. If you're going to pay these athletes millions of dollars, and you're going to make millions off of the t-shirts and millions off of the TV contracts, and you'd be surprised what these sports teams make off of video games. If you're going to make all those billions and billions of dollars, why can't you build your own stadium? Why does the city need to give you land? Why does the city need to subsidize your stadium? It's a big racket, is all it is. Exactly, Tim. Well said. I agree with you. Veterans are injured permanently and don't make millions. It's not right, no matter how you put it. I agree. I agree. And and we put a lot more prestige, and this is what's really sad. We put a lot more prestige on athletes than we do on the people that die defending our country. And we really need to think about this weekend, especially. And that's why I try to stay away from politics, but that's why I'm kind of going there today as we head into Memorial Weekend. I mean, there's a lot of people that gave their life so that we could have the crazy ideas we have today, so that I could get on here and make these YouTube videos and give my opinion. There's countries that if I did this in, I'd be imprisoned or killed, and I can get on here and say pretty much anything I want to. Sometimes YouTube can be the Gestapo, but for the most part, I can get on here. I mean, I could publicly criticize the government. There's countries where that's treason. You can be locked up or killed for that. And so a lot of people died for us to have those freedoms, and for us to not pay homage to our veterans or think about what all they've done, it's really sad. What this country needs is the cost of living is less than the average income made. That's the actual problem, not the amount. Yeah, and the problem that you have there is in a free market, you don't want to start price controls, but hopefully the market corrects itself. But now in this day and age with computers and all the technologies we have, you can artificially inflate things to make it whatever you want it to be. I'll tell you what we need more than anything. We need people to learn how to start living in their means. Everybody thinks that, you know, everybody thinks they need an 85-inch TV, and, food, clothing, and shelter is what you need. Those are luxuries that you work up to. Um, but I know people that they get a $14,000 tax refund. They hadn't worked all year, and then they go out and they buy 85-inch TV and surround sound, or worse, they go to rent to own and get it, and then 3 months later, it's getting repossessed. And I realize why we do tax refund and earned income credit and all of that. But with that earned income credit, maybe we need to start having some financial classes and teaching people how to budget and the difference between a need and a want and things like that. The best way to start an electric car. I don't know, but after you get it started, you should take it somewhere and trade it in for an internal combustion engine. Get rid of the electric cars. Socialism will never work, but they keep trying to make it happen. It's sad. Well, because here's the deal about socialism. Socialism is great for the few people at the top, but it sucks for everybody else. So if Tim and Todd start a socialist government, it's great for Tim and Todd, but everybody that lives under Tim and Todd, they're in basic poverty, and so it just depends on where you're at in that social structure. But it never works. It always fails, and I guess we as people are hard headed and we keep thinking, well, it hadn't worked in thousands of years, but maybe it'll work just this time. Yes, I agree. Acceleration rules. I don't know. I'm not going to sell it right now. I'm trying to decide. I took it apart and I'm having a heck of a time getting it back together. I'm going to have to hire a mechanic to come out and put it back together. The speedometer wasn't working. I took it apart and put a new speedometer in it, or a used one, but new to the car. And I can't get my hands back behind there anymore. And so I disassembled more and more of it, trying to get my hands behind the instrument cluster. And I ain't even gonna lie, I've got a big mess on my hands now. And I've talked to a couple of mechanics about coming out to my shop and fixing it. But the truth about the Corvette is, I actually like the car, and I haven't decided if I want to sell it and get a Ford, which I'm a Ford guy, or if I want to put a 6 speed in it. It has a 4 speed now, which was back then it was the standard option. Now it's the desired deal. It makes the car worth a lot more money than if it's an automatic. But that 4 speed's terrible on the highway. At 70 miles an hour, you're doing almost 3,500 RPMs. And if it had a 6 speed in it, it'd be a lot more pleasurable to drive on the highway. And Tremec makes a kit. Several people do, and I'm thinking about putting a 6 speed in it and just keeping it. But you never know. If I got offered the right amount of money, I'd probably sell it. Every time I get out there and try to, what you need to do is catch me when I'm trying to put that dash back together, and then I'll sell it to you. And I'm usually pretty upset. Got a nice 454 waiting for a body. Oh, that would be nice. Those early 70s Corvettes for a couple of years there did have 454s, and those were mean cars. I like the 454. It's just a heavy engine. Hey Matthew, thanks for being here, man. I'm glad you made it. You guys, if you can, and I hate asking, please make sure you're subscribed and give me a thumbs up. It really helps me in the algorithms. I need to get to 10,000 subscribers. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the YouTube worlds when I get to 10,000. And I know it seems like a long ways off, but we're already almost at 6,000, and my voice is going too. But yeah, y'all, it also it makes it show up in the searches better, and it's really one way you can really help me out is to do that. Also, share it on your social medias. Tell your friends, get them to come in here and watch. I really appreciate all the questions, the comments. It's kind of like the old style truck stops where we could all sit around and talk. And so I appreciate each and every one of you being here week after week. And if you subscribe, it's free to do, and it will send you a notification if you click that bell and select all. It'll send you like a little notification each time I put out a video or do one of these lives. Right now, I'm trying to do the lives every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Central. And so join me every time you can. Sometimes I'll have a lot of stuff to tell you, and sometimes we'll just sit here and laugh and have a good time. You never know what's going to happen. I appreciate that, Damien. Poor countries treat elderly better than us, the richest country in the world. You should always treat other elderly people just as good as your own grandparents. Yeah, I would say that's kind of a deal all the way across the board, though. Respect for each other is down. Like when I go in somewhere, I'll hold the door open for people. People don't say thank you. You go in a truck stop, people will step right in front of you, don't say excuse me. Some of them will bump you and not say excuse me. And you see it in courtesy when you're driving out on the road. People, not just the elderly, but people in general, just aren't treating people with the same level of respect that they used to. And I mean, who do we blame? Every generation says the generation after them is worse, but we're the ones that raised that generation. And if they're thoughtless and disrespectful, we made them that way. So we got to take some of the blame too. But um, it'd be nice if we could all just treat each other a little better. People don't understand that governments will always get their money back some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, they will go out of business. Nothing is ever free from the government. Exactly. And you think about these checks that went out, these stimulus checks. Everybody loved them when they were going out, but now the government's getting their money back. Their inflation's up. It's everybody thought, oh, this is free money, and now they're seeing just how free it was. Um, there was a study. I'm trying to remember what it was, but it seemed like every dollar you sent to the government for a welfare program, like 63 cents of it actually made it to the actual people. And I may have that backwards. It may have been 37 cents. But anyway, by the time it went through all the government bureaucracy, very, very little actually went to the people that needed it. And George Bush, the second one, the son, he actually suggested, and I thought it was a great idea, that we just do away with welfare programs and let the local churches apply for that money. And that way, if Todd and Tim are in a neighborhood and Todd and Tim need financial help, the church is aware of it and they can give Todd and Tim some help. But by the same token, if Todd and Tim are scam artists and they're lazy and don't want to work, they're aware of that too, and they can tell Todd and Tim to go get a job, come rake leaves at the church, and then we'll give you money, or something like that. So I read George Bush's book, Decision Points, and I didn't agree with everything he said. Matter of fact, there was a lot of things I didn't agree with. But after I read that book, I kind of understood his logic and his way of thinking. I think he was a good guy, but I think he did make some bad decisions at critical points. I had a 79 Mustang hatchback with a 302 Boss and Harley carbs in the late 80s. I put two big house speakers in the back with a Pioneer pullout system. You knew I was coming a while away. Yeah, I had an 82 Mustang with a 302, and it had T-tops, and I wish I'd have kept that car. But what I really want, and I'm weird, I like the Mustang 2s, specifically the 1978s. And I really like the 78 Mustang 2 King Cobra. They look like a Pinto, but they're bigger. And I love those cars. I've had 4 or 5 of them. I had a Mach 1 that was a 4-speed, that body style. But if I could find a King Cobra, I mean, I saw one go on Meekum the other day for $34,000. I can't spend that kind of money, but if I could find a decent one for $8,000 or $10,000, or say under $25,000, I'd probably sell the Corvette and get something like that. I also like the late 60s and early 70s Mustangs, the Mach 1s. If I could find something like that, I'd be tempted to do something like that. But I'd be perfectly happy in the Corvette too. It's definitely not something you'd want to drive on a daily basis, but it's fun to get it out on the weekends and go cruise around. Yeah, disrespect is extremely high. I saw a TikTok the other day, and I realize a lot of these are rigged. But a guy come out of a store and shouldered a guy, and didn't say excuse me or nothing. And I don't get it. It doesn't cost. We're in bad economic times, but it doesn't cost any of us anything to be nice to each other and to treat each other the way we want to be treated. They won't even drug test welfare recipients because it's against their rights. What about taxpayer rights or the crackhead mother kids' rights? Crazy stuff. Yeah. So here's the deal on that. You don't have to get drug tested to get a handout, but you got to get drug tested to get a job. I've never understood that logic. And I think they should make it similar to what they do with unemployment benefits. You should have to show where you went out and applied for X number of jobs a week. You have to look at a case by case basis, and that's where lawyers get involved. But if you've got a guy, if you've got a 50-year-old Tim or Todd that's never had welfare in their whole life, and they come in and say, "Hey, I lost my job, I need some help," then maybe you don't look at them too hard. You give them 3 months or 6 months worth of benefits. But if you've got a Tim and a Todd that are in there every other month, "Hey, we need help," and we've each got 6 kids, then maybe it's time to sit down and have a discussion with them about responsible living. And I know that's hard to do in a free market uh, society like ours where people have freedom. You don't want to, the government's big fear is you don't want to have a China situation where you're putting a limit on how many kids each family can have. But I know a girl, what's she got, Paula? 7 kids? I know a girl, she's got 6 kids and she's pregnant with her seventh. She's on welfare. She's switching baby daddies every chance she gets. I think those 7 kids are from 4 different dads, 5 different dads, 4 or 5 different dads. And, she's they're a source of income for her. She works at a nursing home, and she probably makes $12 an hour, $15 an hour. But with 7 kids, of course, she's going to be broke. And at some point, somebody needs to talk to her about, hey, maybe you need to get your tubes tied, or something like that. I don't want to limit how many kids anybody can have, but something needs to be done. Tim says exactly. So was 5,000, or are you talking about my down payment on the truck? Um, it's complicated. We're going to go into it, but we're going to do it at the time we show the truck. I tried to apply for food stamps a week ago and I got denied because I make too much money. Dang, that stinks. It I guess it's good in a way, but if you need the help, it's bad. I don't know about where you live in Lubbock. They have food banks and stuff like that. You could get some help from the food bank, or some of the churches in Lubbock also do stuff like that to help out people that are struggling. You might check with some of the larger churches and see if they have any programs like that to help you out if you really need help and food stamps aren't available to you. All righty. Tim's taking off. Have a good night. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for all the good comments tonight. we still got a crowd here, so I'm going to hang around for a little bit. But I got to be awake in about 11 hours, so I need my beauty rest. I hadn't slept in a fairly decent amount of time. Probably wouldn't be wise for me to announce on here how long it's been since I had good sleep. But I can tell you it's been in personal vehicles. I haven't operated a commercial vehicle in roughly a month since April 28th. Have not operated a commercial vehicle of any kind. Tomorrow I'll be test driving a truck and hopefully signing papers and giving away a decent stack of money. Anybody else got anything else they want to talk about tonight? I guess I can kind of answer Michael's question. I did put 5,000 down, but there's some other stuff you have to do with it. For example, you got to pay your 2290 and things like that. And so I'm cautious about giving those numbers because when I say 5,000 down, people think that's all in, and it's never all in. Even when I bought that Volvo, but yeah, I'm looking at deals for people anywhere from $2,000 down up to about $20,000 down. So when people call me and say, "Hey, I need a truck. This lease purchase sucks," I can ask them how much money they got down, and then I can point them to people that can help them get a truck with wherever they're at financially. So we did. When did we drive the cop car, Paula? A couple weeks ago? Week ago? A week or so ago, we did drive the cop car. I filled it up and I ran the whole tank out driving it around town. We almost bought it on this 1,100-mile trip instead of bringing my wife's car. My wife's car is all-wheel drive, and so we knew we were going to be hitting some bad weather, and that's why we brought it. But the cop car is running great, and I actually like driving it. It's really fuel efficient, and so we've got all the bugs worked out of it now. And so we almost brought it on this trip, but yeah, it's still around. I was driving my pickup, but the turbos have quit working, so it's got to go to the shop. It's under warranty for that. I just got to find time to run it down there. I'm not even in Texas right now. I'm 1,100 miles from the house, roughly. So the trucks I've seen are anywhere from about 2018 to brand spanking new. And obviously, if you're going to get a brand new one, they're going to be more expensive uh, than a used one, and the down payments are going to be larger. But yeah, and I told you wrong there. The people I'm working with, I can get you anything from a 2016 all the way up to brand spanking new. So yeah, it's. I think this is gonna. If we can make this work, I think this is going to make a lot of companies take a look at their lease purchases and go, "Hey, maybe we need to make some improvements." That's my ultimate goal. And so I know I'm just one small YouTuber, but that's how it starts. It starts with one person, and if they start seeing people gravitating towards this type of deal, maybe it'll motivate them to do better. But we probably are going to wrap things up here pretty quick, unless you guys got some more questions. But you guys join me on Tuesday. We're going to have Trucker CFO on, or at least he's scheduled. I say that because with it being Memorial Day the day before, he may have prior commitments or something, but the plan is that's his Tuesday, and we'll bring him on, talk about that stuff. I'm sure we'll talk about this truck show a little more that I'm going to be at. And at the bare minimum, if y'all can't come there and meet me, at least listen to me when I'm on satellite radio. If you're subscribed to satellite radio, it'd be great. I don't know what kind of questions they're going to ask me or nothing, but I'm just going to get in there and wing it like I always do. No, it's not Lone Mountain, but Lone Mountain is a good option for some people. The problem with Lone Mountain is that in my case, they wanted you to have your LLC for at least 90 days, and I haven't had mine 90 days yet. And during the time that I have had my LLC is when all this other stuff's gone on. So my income has been awful, awful. And I've depleted all my savings and resources and things like that. But certainly, if a certain type of person called me and said, I need a truck, I would recommend Loading Mountain to a certain type of person. But that's kind of the problem is there's not a one size fits all solution for everybody, but I'm trying to find a solution that will benefit the most people. So here's the sad thing, Wesley. I'm probably not going to ever say where I'm at. I'm working for a really small company, and so or I'm not even working for him yet. I'm supposed to start first week in May. But I mean, he can't add a lot of trucks anyway. And so, if I have somebody that's needing something and I know them pretty well, I might, pair those two up. But to publicly promote him or try to get guys there, it's just too early. Now, maybe in a few months, we look at something like that. But in the beginning, I'm probably not going to promote where I'm at or even say where I'm at, and that'll keep them out of the videos, and I can say what I want to say. And then if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I need a job," then I'll try to place them somewhere. Or if they call me and say, "I'm thinking about this company," like the CRST guy, I'll take a look at CRST and give him my honest opinion. But it's we've got. Well, here's another thing. The second I say where I'm going or what I'm doing, there's going to be about 12 or 13 guys that are going to call that company and try to talk them out of hiring me. They're going to mention the accident and all that. And by the way, for those of you that are considering doing that, um, they already know. They know everything about it, and even details I haven't released publicly. And so there's not going to be a gotcha moment there. And but yeah, it's just a shame that, and it goes back to that respect thing we were talking a minute ago. Instead of trying to help each other, we're trying to figure out ways to tear each other down. And then we wonder why we have the problems we have in trucking. But yeah, I'm gonna wrestle with myself and figure out the best way I can help people without putting myself in jeopardy. And I've got some good suggestions. I know a lot of companies and a lot of people at those companies, and I'm still going to keep doing what I do and helping people, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, I've got mixed feelings about this too, and some of you are going to get mad at me when I say this, but a lease is a contract, and in theory, two adults agreed on this together, and so I don't know that I'm a big fan of the leasing task force. If people are reading the lease, then they know what they're getting into. And if they're not reading the lease, then shame on them for not doing it. And so yeah, that's I mean, I guess it has its place, but I just think those kind of things take care of themselves if people uh, become responsible. Once we start letting the government get in these kind of things, then they feel like they need to regulate everything. And I think personal responsibility and reading your contract and knowing what you're getting into is more important than having a bunch of guys that may or may not know a lot about trucking making decisions like this. No subscribers. You were trying to reach 5,000 and now we're shooting for 10. Yeah, well, there's different incentives that happen at different levels with YouTube. And as long as I'm alive, and I kind of covered this earlier in the video, I'm going to constantly be trying to vertically improve my life. So, yeah, you've got to have a goal, personally, privately, professionally, in your house, in your business, in your religious beliefs. You've got to have goals and things to shoot for. And it's just like trip planning. When you trip plan, if you're in Atlanta going to LA, you figure where you're going to buy your fuel, where you're going to stop for the night, where there'll be parking, what time you'll hit the major cities, things like that. You don't just hop in the truck and say, all right, I'm going to drive today and I'll get wherever I get. And then when I wake up tomorrow, I'll drive again until I get wherever I get. And same thing with YouTube. It's just one portion of my life, but uh, to be honest with you, the bigger it gets, the more people I can help, and that's honestly all I'm trying to do. But there's some perks and stuff that well, it starts at 50 subscribers. There's some perks that YouTube opens up at 50 subscribers. There's more at 1,000. There's more at 5,000. There's more at 10,000. And so, yeah, I'm going to always try to better myself, and sometimes that's going to mean changing companies because companies are in competition, like we've been talking about tonight. And if a company sees something and goes, "Hey, we think we can do it better," and I agree with them, then I'm going to take a shot at it because we only get one shot in this life, and you got to take your shots. Yeah, have you heard of Silver Trucking out of St. Louis? I heard they're a good company. Yes, I have heard of them, and I've actually talked to them. They're not a bad outfit. The only thing is, I'm wanting to do self dispatch, and they told me that wasn't an option right now. It's nothing against dispatchers either. It's just that, and it's not that I think I'm smarter or better than anybody. It's just that I think I can dispatch myself better than anybody else can. And I think most of you can dispatch yourself better than anybody else can because when you wake up in the morning, you know how you feel, and um, you know how your truck's running, you know weather conditions, things like that, and so you know when you're ready to go home and when you're not, or when you need a 34-hour and when you don't, and so um, Silver's definitely on the list of places I would consider, but they would be a shoe in if they would go back to self dispatch. And from what I understand, they do offer it to some people. One guy was telling me about a team he knows over there that's self dispatch. But when I talked to him, that wasn't an option. All right, I'm leaving that up so y'all can see the website. If you look down in the little blue ticker there, it's got the website and the email there. It's also got the information if you need to talk to Trucker CFO about taxes. He'd be glad to answer your questions. And like I say, he'll be on the Tuesday show. I have absolutely no questions for him. So another way you guys could help me out, if you've got some tax questions, email them to me, and I'll sure hit him with them on Tuesday. Hopefully he's got some things he wants to talk about because I've been so preoccupied with this other stuff that I have really not got a lot for him yet. But anyway, I'm losing my voice. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. You guys have a great night. We'll see you on Monday with the video and then Tuesday with the live show. Y'all take care. Bye bye.